Gentlemen, if you're listening, please excuse this, but I did what most of you do. You let a lot of really wonderful partners go right through your hands. And then when you're ready to settle down, whoever is there that's the one. And it generally isn't the best of the lot. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Silver and Sensational. It is Lois, as in Lois Mills, welcoming you and thanking you for tuning in. You know, today I'm going to talk about my half marriage. When someone asks me, how many times have you been married? I say 2.5 times. And the half is a long-term relationship, live-in, that I never legalized. Wisely, I didn't. Anyway, let me tell you a bit about it. If you followed my first and second marriages, you can definitely see a pattern that I have followed in choosing people that resemble my mother. And I used to say of this gentleman, I found my mother in drag. I mean, after being alone for 14 years, I decided one day, I don't want to be alone anymore. I want to be able to share the good things that happen. And I did what, gentlemen, if you're listening, please excuse this, but I did what most of you do. You let a lot of really wonderful partners go right through your hands. And then when you're ready to settle down, whoever is there that's the one. And it generally isn't the best of the lot. And this was really probably the most destructive of the three, because I had reached a point after being on my own for 14 years and going through, those 14 years, 5 years of being in a fetal position. But I had come into my own, and I struck my place in the world. And once again, I found myself in a situation where, I really didn't know how much he lied. I didn't. It took some years to figure that out. And I didn't realize how much of a show person he was. He was always on stage and telling stories. And it really was a dreadful relationship. So what I kept doing, how hard it is to admit that after being alone for so many years and being in therapy all that time, that you go back hook, line, and sinker into a relationship that was so destructive. How could I do this? So what did I do? Well, I did what any normal, not so normal person does. I just kept lowering the bar. And every time I lowered that bar, this son of a gun had come in lower. And then I'd lower it again, and I kept saying, well, I don't need him for this. I don't need him for that. And I really got suckered into feeling sorry for him. And it was just, I don't know how to talk about this without getting into detail. And I'm not sure that getting into detail is something that is going to benefit you, because I'm doing these three, which were the most significant relationships in my life. I'm doing them to help anybody out there who's going through a divorce, who is divorced, to know that, listen, no matter when you look at somebody today and you say, God, she's really got her shit together. It took a lot of years and a lot of pain to get to that point, and a lot of stupid choices. Really stupid. I'll just round out that situation. You know, I just didn't want to think that I had made such a huge mistake. And again, that fear of abandonment that I had, and it just, I really got dealt a wonderful card insofar as he decided he was going to move back to Florida. Now, again, did I find out from him? No, I found out from a caddy at the golf club that he actually was moving. Did you know I found a Florida driver's license? And he said, oh, I just got that. This man, he couldn't tell you the sun was out when it was without creating a lie. And I have to say, I hardly cried when he left. I felt such relief, and it was done with. He was gone. And I dealt with it very well, so much differently than the others. But then again, I was at a stage in my life where he was just too draining on me. And it was the best thing. Now, did I need a lot of time to recuperate from that? No, because, I really, for once, saw him for who and what he was and didn't blame myself, which I did, in previous marriages, as I spoke about. Let's talk about what we learn from these things. And what I learned, of course, is I got the shittiest judgment, so, I don't trust myself. But I also learned that I'm a person that is better suited to not having a full-time relationship, living or not. It's just not something it's not the kind of atmosphere I thrive in. So that's something for all of us to think about, sometimes we feel, oh, I'm in this, I don't want to be alone. I don't want to be alone. I don't want to be alone. And people jump into things because they don't want to be alone. Once we get into the relationship and find out how much it's not working, we stay in it because we don't want to be alone. So in each of the circumstances, I've given you, starting with marriage number 1, where it was the death of my father that gave me the impetus to, when I saw how unhappy my own parents were, that I realized, I don't want to get to their age and be that unhappy. So that was the impetus for me, and I was young and out, and so, I, wasn't at any shortage of people. With the second marriage, as you may remember from my talk last week, that devastated me, and it really was, I think, more of a grieving for my life as well as the end of that marriage, because, as I said, I have never really been in love with any of these people. I love them, but in love, no, I was not in love. And I'd love to know what that's like, but if I don't before I, touch grass, and I don't mean that in a millennial or, pardon me, a Gen whatever X way, that would be nice. And if not, I've had so many other wonderful things. Let's talk about how to get back in the groove. It doesn't mean you have to get back on the horse and start dating again, unless that's what you really want to do. Now, for me, I'm not into online dating. I really am not. I've tried it, it's just not there for me. I think I'm too skeptical of believing that a lot of what people are purporting to be. I just am not that into buying hook, line, and sinker, whatever it is that they're saying. Also, I innately really don't want to give up my lifestyle. And if you're going to be in a relationship, you have to compromise. And I've done more than my share of compromising, so I don't want to do that anymore. So first, let me talk to the people out there who are in my camp and who are maybe afraid. And I say to you, there's a lot to be afraid of, okay? I'm not going to minimize the fear of being alone. But I'm telling you, that's not a fear that you can't overcome and overcome very easily with a particular mindset. So, you have to think of yourself as completely capable of taking care of yourself. That's number one. Number two, you're completely capable of doing whatever it is you need to do to make your life as exciting and wonderful as you want it to be. You don't need another person to do that. I have a couple of people I know, women, they love to travel, and they travel alone, and they go all over the place. And, I did that. I did travel alone for all through my business years, and is it, for me, the ideal way to travel? Not if I have a good traveling companion, but would it stop me from going someplace that I want to go to if I didn't have a traveling companion? Absolutely not. Case in point, I'm moving to Paris. I'm moving to Paris alone, and I don't really know anybody there, and it's frightening. I'm not going to lie and say I'm not afraid, but I'm going to do it anyway. And that is the idea. I mean, I think it probably goes back to the 80s, where there was a plethora of self-help books. And there was a very popular book, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. Well, that's what I'm saying to all of you. You're going to be afraid, but there is really just, it's a whole different ballpark today. Women are doing lots of things that women didn't do in our mother's generation. And it's like, how can I say this? If you act the part, you become the part, okay? Years ago, when I was starting to ski, there was this big, two ways of thinking, we'd go out and buy the most incredible ski outfit. And then we were called ski bunnies because we had all this beautiful parka and the pants and the whole 9 yards. And they'd say, oh, there goes a ski bunny. But then there's that other school of thought that said, well, if you dress the part, you'll act the part, and you'll be the part. So that's what I ascribe to. I always think about, being the ski bunny, because learning how to ski, but in the best clothes. So why not put yourself together and put your mindset there that you are a strong, independent individual who invites only those people in your life that are supportive and that you have positive feedback from. Those of you who want another relationship and who don't, you're there, you're either divorced or you're widowed and you've had this, even if you didn't have a great relationship, you still believe you want to be with someone. Well, before you go doing all that, why don't you stop and think a bit about what is it about having someone in your life, and accept the fact that if you have been in a long term, and I'm talking to those of you who've been married, 25, 30, 40, 50 years, you have history and you had history. You have to be ready to do some big compromises when you're going to be with another person. So, you've got their children to consider in addition to your children. You have their needs to consider in addition to your needs. And let's not forget that when you get to a certain point in life, a certain age, there are medical issues that are you ready to take on for another person. Many of you just finishing taking care of someone until they pass to the other side. So give this a lot of thought before you start telling your friends and family you want to meet somebody, and you start looking at Hinge and Bumble and asking your kids to help you put a profile up there. So I'm saying to you, I wish you all of the luck in doing that. But do bear in mind that you need to continue to be who you are and to find somebody who's going to treat you beautifully. And don't be expecting the financial gains that you got in a long-term marriage, because they're not there. And I've said this before in other episodes. Those estates have already been planned. They're poured in concrete. And for the most part, most people's kids are concerned when there's another person in their parents' life, because they're concerned they don't want their lives to change, and they certainly don't want their inheritance to change. So keep all this in mind. And what I'm saying to you is just change your expectations and look at this new relationship as a fun time, a time to, find somebody who has the same interests as you. And so you have interests you can share, but don't give up your own interests. You have friends you can share, but don't give up your own friends. And you have just alter your expectations. I know somebody who was married like 50 years and was widowed. And my God, she once told me, I've never had to take care of myself, and I want to meet somebody because I want someone to take care of me. And I thought, God, good luck. And she met up with a man who really didn't have any room in his life to be taking care of anybody else. There could be a dinner, there could be a trip, but that, wasn't enough for her. And she kept saying, I want a ring and a prenup and a rabbi and a house. And guess what? 3 years later, she's saying the same thing, and none of it has come through. So I tried to say to her, why don't you just enjoy what there is to enjoy? Take advantage of the fact that, you may like the same things, you have a companion of sorts, and if this is, or, take a walk and go find what you're looking for. So that's what I'm saying to you. Don't expect this relationship to be like your old relationship. Well, especially if it was a good one. If it was a bad one, of course, you don't want it to be the same, but it's going to be different. And so if you adjust your expectations, you could have a wonderful, very late life romance. And I tip my hat to you. I think it's a wonderful thing to have. And there's nothing better than to see two people who care about one another and care for one another. On that note, I hope I have given you some insight into my experiences, what I've learned from it, and what I hope to pass on to you. And in the meantime, I thank you for tuning in. And please, if you haven't already subscribed, do so. And share us with all your friends, and even people who aren't your friends. Hit the notification bell to let you know when we have a new episode, which our Dear Jessica drops every Friday. And if you have a comment, we'd love to hear it, and do hit like. In the meantime, thank you again so much for tuning in. I look forward to seeing you again next week. Be well, stay safe, and God bless. Bye now.